Open to the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2011 at 7 p.m. We'll have a roll call. Councilmember Fagan? Present. Councilmember Goodman?
Present.
Councilmember McLaughlin?
Here.
Councilmember Torres?
Present.
President Sofield? Here. Let the record indicate the presence of City Manager Charles Diefman and Deputy Corporation Councilman Ron Costello. The man is salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that this being the first meeting of the month, we have good and welfare after the regular meeting. If that gives you an opportunity to comment on issues affecting the city, if you wish to speak or think you may wish to speak, please put your name on the list up front. We do not take additional names once the good and welfare session starts. Also, I'm sure most of you are aware we had a tragedy in our Long Beach family over the last week. An individual named Daniel Babas, who was a loved and respected teacher in the school district, was tragically lost to us while he was on a surfing trip with his wife in Indonesia. I would just like to observe a moment of silence now for Mr. Babas before we begin the meeting. Thank you. Mr. Frazier? Our first item this evening is a resolution authorizing the city manager to renew the current contract with the East End Atlantic Beach Fire District. Mr. Tiffany?
Yes, for a number of years, the City of Long Beach has been in contract with the East Atlantic Beach Fire District to supply fire suppression services and ambulance services. We are currently seeking to extend that contract. We have brought up the cost slightly. These are our neighbors, and we're not looking to profit from them because they do not have any ability on their own to fight fires or any sort of ambulance service. The yearly amount is going up to $105,000, $187,000. It was $102,000. Let's keep in mind the following, that in 2010, we responded to 113 calls in East Atlantic Beach. If you do the math, that means that we were paid $903 for each and every call that we made. So obviously, we are not losing money in this transaction. Also keep in mind that in the ambulance calls, we are similarly being reimbursed by the insurance companies. So this is not a money-losing proposition. In fact, we are making money, which was not our motive or intention. It's really to safeguard our neighbor.
Anyone on the council?
Yeah, I have a question.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Charles, what are the boundaries for that? Does that just go down to Clayton? Or
It goes from, obviously, from Nevada to, I understand, right before the Sands starts.
okay, so does it catch the estates also, or no?
The estates. I think Scott's here. I'm not sure. Scott?
I don't think it does.
Good evening, Scott Kimmons, City of Long Beach Fire Commissioner. The boundaries are from the west side of Nevada Avenue to approximately Richard Street. It does encompass a majority of the estates, which are north of Beach Street there.
And who pays the fees, Scott? Is it the town of Hempstead?
What happens is that the East Atlantic Beach Fire District is a taxing district. Their monies are collected by the town of Hempstead, and then they receive the checks from the town of Hempstead, and then they issue the check to the City of Long Beach. We receive that payment twice a year.
Okay.
Mr. Torres?
Yeah, just a simple question. I don't know if it's to Charles or to you, Scott. Have we experienced any increase in insurance fees of any kind regarding this service?
As far as the ambulance billing,
Yes.
I think it's status quo. The amount of calls we've had there over the last 3 years have pretty much, in 2009, we responded to 125 calls, 2010, 113 calls, and so far this year, about 85 calls. The majority of them are ambulance calls. I believe approximately 75 or 80% of them are ambulance calls, which we would bill for. So I would think Other than us getting more reimbursement from the insurance companies or Medicare or Medicaid, the collections would remain approximately the
My
same.
question is more towards what we're paying for insurance, what our cost is. This is why I don't know if it's Charles or, what are we paying for insurance to insure our ambulance and the service we're providing?
I can't recall the exact number, but we've never been told that any increase was occasioned by the services that we provide to East Atlantic Beach or Atlantic Beach, but I'm sure that they are a factor in what that premium is. But the analysis would be that if anything, from the money that we're making from this, it's helping to underwrite payments of those premiums.
Okay, well, so the difference between the 102,000 and then 105, that, could that be increase in insurance? Because insurance has gone up throughout the entire country. I mean, is that what we're looking at?
No, we're not looking at that. It's a slight increase just to account for things like increases in gas, and I guess theoretically, if there's been any increase in the premium. But again, we've never been told that our premiums were being driven by these contracts.
Okay, I'm just going to make a suggestion, that we look into what the premiums were and what they are now, and we see whether or not this factoring in between to 102,000 and 105,000 factors in that increase. That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. Mr. Vega?
How long is this contract for?
5 years. Doesn't it say renew? For an additional-
The initial contract was
5
for
years?
3 years, with
Okay.
their right to renew for additional 5 years.
That's
So-
correct, it's
so
an
this-
8-year contract.
So it'll be a total of 8 years.
So this will be a flat rate for the next 5 years?
That's correct. For the next 8 years.
The last contract that was just expiring was a 10-year, it was 5 and 5, it was a
Okay.
flat rate for 10. This one is only the flat rate for the 8 years.
Are there any accelerators that are built into this? Assuming that we have to do a new contract for the uniformed firefighters, this in fact could be a money loser for us, depending upon what those contracts are.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fagan, what was that?
I'm sorry, Mr. Fagan, I was distracting him.
I said, are there any accelerators in this contract that are tied to any new uniformed
Raises.
firefighter contracts? Because assuming that we're going to give a new contract to the firefighters at some point, this could be a money loser for us.
No, because this would not, any increased calls that the paid firemen are making, and again, they only make them to East Atlantic Beach and not Atlantic Beach, they're going to be paid what they're going to be paid. They don't get paid per call.
No, well, how are they paid then on this? How does East
Fine.
Atlantic Beach pay, based upon each call, correct or no?
No. They're paid a flat fee.
I-
But we're saying
But
that,
we pay our men based on their shift.
yeah, they get an annual income that's broken down hourly.
And assuming that we're going to give them a new contract, each shift is going to become more expensive. Is that reasonable to
Yes.
assume?
That's correct.
Then, at the end of the day, these shifts or these calls to East Atlantic Beach could actually cost the city more than what this contract seems to be calling for, no?
Will
That possibility here with the new contract?
No. Will a call to Atlantic Beach cost the city more than $903? The answer is no. Under no circumstances. They get paid for a 24-hour tour, whether they make 30 calls during that 24-hour period.
Okay, then I guess the question...
Or they make 10 calls.
Then I guess the question begs, is the flat fee, what is the flat fee per call to East Atlantic Beach? Is that
No,
written into the
I don't know what you're missing here. There is an
There's a
annual...
contract here that doesn't reflect what might be a new contract for the uniformed firefighters.
Yeah, that's right. Correct.
Which will ultimately increase the cost to the city.
No.
Higher wages to uniformed firefighters will increase our costs.
Mr. Fagan, those costs are going to be those costs, whether we have a contract with East Atlantic Beach or we don't. Whether we give the firefighters a 2% increase, a 3% increase, or a 4% increase has nothing to do with whether we have a contract with East Atlantic Beach or not. If anything,
That I
the
grasp.
contract with East Atlantic Beach helps us pay those salaries.
I'll let it go at this point.
Anyone in the public? Next item, please. I'm sorry, I didn't see you put your hand up. I noticed some people walk in since the meeting began. I remind you, it's good and welfare after the regular scheduled meeting. If you feel like you want to speak at good and welfare, please put your name on the front of the list. Ms. Williams, are you putting your name on the list now? Is that what you're doing? You want to just leave it there so that if people want to come up, they can come there, they don't have to go to the podium, is that okay? Thank you.
I think they might have a hard time getting around me.
That's what I meant.
Good evening, Jay Gussler, 124 Taft Avenue, speaking as a private citizen. On the first, number one item on the agenda, the contract for West Atlantic Beach, can you give me an idea just how
East.
we arrived at this figure? I heard Mr. Theophan explain that it was a slight increase from the prior agreement, but can anybody tell me how that figure was arrived at?
I'd like Mr. Guster to ask us any and all questions he has before we answer them.
Do you have a series of questions, Mr. Gussler?
Well, that question could potentially lead to some others, but if you want me to present all of my questions as they exist presently and reserve whatever time I may have to issue any follow-ups, then I'd be happy to proceed with my questions.
Please do it that way.
The Atlantic Beach Fire District, do we have any idea whether or not their budget is in excess of the amount that we're contracting to provide fire protection with them? Can we say whether or not this figure is representative of a percentage of the assessment of the values of the properties? Is it a per household type of calculation? I'm just wondering where this number came from. I mean, it may sound like an impressive number, but I think that when you consider the protection that is being offered in return, it's really quite a bargain. And I'm not suggesting that we should gouge our neighbors, but I'm suggesting that the council's first obligation is to the taxpayers of this city, and that if there would be a way to offset some of the costs of the fire department by contracting out to other governmental entities, then the council should certainly pursue that vigorously. Furthermore, I was looking today online, and I saw where the East Norwich Fire Department, town up in Oyster Bay, contracted just this year, for the next 3 years, for approximately $260,000 a year to provide fire protection to that area. That area is very similar. It's 938 households, 772 families, and a median income of $36,910 as of the 2000 census. East Atlantic Beach is 887 households, 587 families with a $34,000 median income household. So the two communities aren't that far apart, and yet East Norwich is paying, by my count, about $155,000 more than the residents of East Atlantic Beach, and I think that we can do better for the taxpayers of this city.
In answer to your question, in 2006, this contract was negotiated by a different city manager and approved by the council at that point. So I don't know what the analysis or what the negotiation was, how they arrived at the figures in the contract that's just expiring.
Do I have any time left?
And as far as the increase, you know, we sat down with the commissioners of the East Atlantic Fire District, and they showed us their revenues, what they're taxing, and they're on a very, very thin margin, and they really cannot afford to pay much more than this. As we know, all taxing authorities are looking to minimize tax increases to people. As I said, I think that the math shows that on a per-call basis, that this contract is rather generous, especially in light of the fact that the vast majority of these are Signal 9 or medical calls that were also reimbursed by the insurance companies. So this is not a losing proposition for the city.
Well, that would be if the city's fire protection costs were static for the next 8 years, which they're not. Or I certainly don't anticipate them being. I don't think anybody on that dais does. That being said, I think this is a bad deal for the residents of the city, and I would urge the council to table the vote on this until a more informed presentation can be made on it.
Thank you, Mr. Bessler. Anyone else in the public? Next item, please.
Item 2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase inspection and maintenance of fire extinguishers and range hood systems under Nassau County contract.
Mr. Tiffany?
Yes, this particular contract is an as-needed contract, and we are piggybacking onto the county's contract for a variety of services that the county had selected the company of Fire Command, which is a Long Beach-based company, to provide these services. There are many types of inspection services that Fire Command performs. They inspect the sprinkler systems that we have in various city buildings. They inspect the ranges, the hoods, where any cooking is done in any city facilities. They inspect and update and replace fire extinguishers that become out of date. Those are pretty much the services that we require from them. They also, the fire panel, the enunciator panels that we have at the Magnolia Center and the West End Community Center are things that are serviced and maintained by Fire Command. All I can say is that last year, the total amount that we spent also utilizing the county's contract was $32,000.
Anyone on the council? Anyone in the public? Next item, please.
Item 3 is a resolution authorizing publication of a notice of public hearing of an application to waive off-street parking requirements for proposed 28 East Park Avenue, second floor, for a massage and wellness facility. This item is for publication only. The hearing will be held August 16th at 7 p.m.
Do I have any motions?
Motion to block vote items 1 through 3.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion to block vote items 1 through 3. Councilmember Fagan.
At this time, I would request that item number 1 be pulled from any block here.
We have a motion, the motion now is for the block vote.
That's no.
Councilmember Goodman.
Yes.
Councilmember McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Torres.
No.
President Suffield.
Yes,
Who will introduce and move the adoption of these items?
I will.
Who will second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Fagan.
At this time, I request that we pull item number 1 from the block.
We're now at the point where we're voting on, Mr. Fagan, wait.
No, we're voting
Wait,
on.
let's see if we can resolve this. It's been a year and a half, we've been doing this the same way for a year and a half. I've asked you repeatedly, if you have an item you want to move, please let me know beforehand, and I've never not accommodated that request. So, wait, I'm trying to work this out. The motion that we have before us is to vote on the block. Do I have a motion to table that vote pending a request by Mr. Fagan?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Right now is a motion before us to table the block vote pending a request by Mr. Fagan. Mr. Frazier?
Councilmember Fagan.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodman.
No.
Councilmember McLaughlin.
Repeat it again.
This is a motion to table the block vote on the agenda.
Yes, I'll vote for it.
Councilmember Torres.
I'm sorry, would you, we're
We're
voting.
voting to table the block vote so that I can give Mr. Fagan a chance, despite the fact that he didn't comply with the way we've done this for a year and a half.
I vote to table, yes.
Okay, and I will also vote to table. All right.
Okay.
Mr. Fagan, do you have a request to move item 1 from the block?
Yes, usually when these items come up on the agenda, there's supposed to be a public hearing and there's information that comes forward so that you may not be predisposed before a meeting, so you can form an opinion sometimes at the meeting, which makes it difficult to make a request before the council meeting. A lot of this information was helpful. If that were the case, I would gladly request it in advance. So in this case, I would vote for item number 1, no.
There's nothing that precluded you from getting up and walking over to me and saying, no, I'm not comfortable with that, can you pull it?
Okay,
We're past that now. Mr. Fagan has made a motion to remove item 1 from the block. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Voting to remove item 1 from the block.
Councilmember Fagan.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodman.
No.
Councilmember McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Torres.
Yes.
President Sophia.
Yes. We're going to vote on item 1 separately now, and then return to voting on item 2 and 3 as the block.
Okay.
Would have been easier if you would have just asked me. Go ahead.
Item 1 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to renew a current contract with the East End Atlantic Beach Fire District. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Who will second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Fagan.
No.
Councilmember Goodman.
Yes.
Councilmember McLaughlin.
Yes, I don't think, with the tax situation being the way it is, even for our East Atlantic Beach neighbors, I don't want to see their taxes get raised either, so I'm going to vote yes.
Councilmember Torres.
Okay, before I vote, I just, again, want to reiterate that in order for us to be able to vote, intelligently, we need information. And needing information on why the increase from 102,000 to 105,000, whether or not it included some of the increases that we know that have happened throughout the entire country in insurance. It's over a 3-year period. What we're saying is that we need more information. I can't vote yes on this because of that. My answer is no.
President Sophia.
You never asked Mr. Theophan for the information, Mr. Torres. If you've had this agenda since Friday. You've had it over the weekend, you've had it for two weekdays. I've mentioned to you this before, it might be more productive if you would ask for the information in advance. I vote yes.
Okay. Block vote on items 2 and 3. Who will introduce and move the adoption of these items?
I will.
Who will second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Fagan.
No.
Councilmember Goodman.
Yes.
Councilmember McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Torres.
No.
President Sophia.
Wait, I lost.
This is,
Didn't you ask to have item 1 removed so that you could then vote yes for items 2 and 3? You just wanted it, you're going to vote no for the whole thing anyway, you just want to write item 1 off?
That's not what I said.
this was the voting for the block.
Right. So, yes.
City manager's monthly personnel report has been filed by the city clerk. Who will make a motion to close the meeting?
I will.
Second.
I want to remind anyone that walked in late that this is good and welfare. If you feel like you want to speak, now would be the time to put your name on the list.
Councilmember Fagan.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodman.
Yes.
Councilmember McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Torres.
Yes.
President Sophia.
Yes. They don't even know what they're doing. Unbelievable. Richard Goodman. They just have no clue, man.
Richard Boodman, 214 Monroe Boulevard. The purpose of government is to protect the people. It's not to make jobs for friends and family at taxpayer expense, or for that matter, to create pensions for city council members at taxpayers' expense. And when it comes to traffic safety, the Long Beach Republican Coalition continues to put us at risk. We've had 1,000 accidents a year, year after year after year, and too many deaths. Mr. Theophan, at the July meeting, after I mentioned how Mr. Sophia let the people in the President streets down for not using his best efforts to reduce the speed limit to 15 miles an hour, you asked why I hadn't supplied you with any comments with regard to traffic safety. I responded that I had done it in patch. Let me refresh your memory. The Patch.com article was titled Signs of the Times. You were quoted in it extensively. I commented that you should make sure that vertical reflective markers are attached to all the stop signs. Right now, there's just a few. You didn't. I also said that all-way decals should be attached to the underside of the stop signs at those intersections, just like in Rockville Center. It increases awareness. You haven't. I also said the white lines on the streets adjacent to the stop sign should be painted regularly. They aren't. Many are missing or faded. And I suggested that the word "stop" be painted in bold letters in front of those white lines. That too was ignored. I also said, without reducing the speed limit to 20 miles an hour on the side streets and initiating serious enforcement,
Thank you,
the
Tom.
carnage will continue. Thanks to Mr. Torres and Mr. Weisenberg, there's a very good chance of reducing the speed limit on the side streets to 20 miles per hour. No thanks to you and the police commissioner, enforcement continues to be sorely lacking, even though you met last December with the commissioner to address the issue. I would like to make another suggestion. The person who is responsible for the "Do Not Enter" signs on the corner of East Walnut and Monroe Boulevard deserves a pat on the back. They are effective. They should be placed all over Long Beach on the streets that the residents of those streets complain about. Last, in a few weeks, thousands of people are going to converge on Long Beach to watch the surfing contests. Don't you think it's a good idea to make sure that the streets are properly marked and all signs are clearly visible before they get here? The purpose of my speaking here, Mr. Theophan, is to save lives and property. It's not about me, and it's not about you. It's about making Long Beach safe for pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Bubin. Barbara Brown?
No, I just...
Good evening. My
I
name
just-
is Barbara Byrne.
I just want to say
87
before Mrs. Byrne speaks that I owe Mrs. Byrne an apology.
Oh, well, thank you.
About a month ago, she and I spoke,
Yes.
and I said that Mr. Mulligan and I would come down and see it. It's been very difficult to find the time, but let me just say this. If Friday, 2 o'clock sounds good to you, we'll be there. How does that sound?
I'll be there.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll see you then.
Thank you. Mr. Theophan knows what this is about. It's about the condition of Connecticut Avenue. It's a disgrace. And I hope Mr. Theophan and I can do something
We'll be
about
there.
it, or the engineers will reassess our block. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Byrne. Maureen Wood?
Good evening. I'm here to talk about the beer distributor on the corner of our block. It's really became a hazard. I have pictures here that were taken, and you would like to see it, be more than glad to, how cars are parked all around, double parked, that people can't get out of their cars in order to go to work sometimes. And it's really very, very sad how children have to go out to the street and go over broken bottles because people are throwing the bottles all around the distributor. Where there is parking on one side toward Florida where people can actually get out and park their cars. And people are just not doing that. Also, we have the trucks going down the block, and they're not supposed to be doing that. No commercial vehicles are supposed to be on the blocks toward the west end there. And it's really, it's going to be very scary someday that I hate to see somebody really injured. So if this can be addressed and really looked at, our neighbors would really, really appreciate it. And I have other pictures here if you want to look at also.
Please.
With the trucks on the sidewalk, and it's, like I said, a hazard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Mary Ellen Polina?
Hi, good evening. I'm Mary Ellen Polina. I'm 68 Delaware Avenue, and I'm the co-chair of the Beautification Committee for the West End Neighbors Civic Association. I'm here with my co-chair, Judy Rednick, from Georgia Avenue. And we're here to follow up on a proposal that we made at the last meeting on July 5th. Judy made a fairly impassioned request for a street sweeper on Beach Street from New York Avenue to Ohio. The situation as the summer progresses, honestly, is getting pretty much out of control.
No.
The cigarette butts, the litter, the amount of garbage on the sidewalks, the garbage that's left all day long, all weekend long in some cases on the sidewalks, and the garbage is not prepared properly. The receptacles are not emptied properly. The garbage collects around the base of the receptacles. So we don't want to see this. I know that you don't want to see it. I know that you've been very cooperative and helpful with us with the planting of the flowers. So, we made a proposal. We distributed to you guys and, of course, Mona on July 5th. I hope that you had a chance to review it. And, just kind of as a emotional part of it, we were particularly disappointed to see the streets in that condition for the Waterfront Warrior Parade. I know Mr. Sofield and Ms. Goodman were there. They marched in the parade. I'm sure they saw what we saw, and it was upsetting to us. We really want the West End to reflect the diamond in the rough that we kind of feel that it is. We love this community, and we want it to be beautiful, we want it to be safe, we want it to be clean. And I'd really like to hear, what you guys, what you...
We did hear you last time, and we're explaining it. The issue that arose was we can't just do the West End Business District. We have to consider the Central Business District and the Business District in the East End as well. So where we're at now, let me finish, is that we're figuring a way to incorporate it as a larger overall project that encompasses all of the business districts throughout the city. And I can't tell you it's going to start tomorrow, but we're on the brink of implementing this, because we have to figure out how many people we need, logistically, how many shifts do they do. Do they go back and forth down the street continually? Do they do one sweep through in the morning, one sweep in the afternoon? All these types of things. And it becomes, I think you understand, a larger concern once you incorporate the Central Business District here and the Business District in the East End. And that's where we are. We're trying to tweak those final logistics, and we agree. We think it's a good program.
Well, I certainly understand that Long Beach is a very complex city. But the West End of Long Beach is a very unusual and has a certain unique set of circumstances, not the least of which is that we're all so close together. And everybody, walks. On Sunday morning when I walk to church, I don't want to have to pass over somebody's broken garbage, or their broken bottles. And I know you understand that, and I know you appreciate that whole situation. And I know that Rick Hoffman told us that they were distributing a notice to the commercial business owners, reminding them what the sanitation codes were. And I think that's a great first step. But, before September, before the thousands of people come, a policy has to be in place that's specific to the West End.
I don't necessarily disagree with it, but your time is up. If you want to stick around afterwards, I'll be happy to talk to you.
And also, I will be in touch with you to tell you what to expect and when to expect it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Louis Treston, and for those of you that haven't participated in Good and Welfare, you have 3 minutes to speak. When someone up on the dais is returning comments to you, the clock is stopped so we don't chew up your time. You have 3 minutes to speak. At the conclusion of that 3 minutes, you'll hear a beeping noise. I'll ask you to wrap it up in a sentence or two, and I'll ask that you please accommodate us, because we do have a number of people that wish to speak tonight. Again, Ms. Treston?
Since they can't see me.
Oh, okay.
My name is Liz Treston, and I reside at 37 Wyoming Avenue. I would like to address the council on the current construction of our new dog park. Some of you may or may not know there's construction going on over by the skateboard park and the launch area on a dog park. I've contacted Councilwoman Goodman who actually called me today, and I appreciate that, because I saw in the patch that the dog park would be opened in mid-July. I looked at my calendar, and today is August 2nd. As a responsible dog owner, I'm really thrilled that there's going to be a dog park. However, as I asked Mrs. Goodman, I'd like to know if there are plans for this dog park, and she was unable to provide me with an adequate answer. Does anyone have an answer?
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Tiafan.
Yes, we are waiting for delivery of a custom water fountain that both humans and dogs will be able to utilize. And it's going to be a couple of weeks before we get it. But other than that, and the installation of some additional fencing, we are almost ready to go.
So, may I ask, is this a public entity?
I missed that comment. What did she say? What did she say?
Of course,
Perhaps-
it's a public entity.
So then it should be accessible, no?
I know what you're driving at. You want to know, is the dog park handicapped accessible?
Well, currently...
Am I correct?
That's why I would like to see the plans, yes.
There are no plans. We are doing it. We don't have blueprints. We're doing this with our own workforce pursuant to verbal instructions. The dog park, well, what do you mean by handicapped accessible? Do you
I
want
wanna
to
go
go
with my
into the
dog
dog
there.
park? Or you want to just you will certainly be able to get your dog access. The dog park is going to be comprised of beach sand throughout the park, so I don't know whether that's an impediment to you or not, but that's the way it's being constructed.
So, therefore, it will not go under any ADA guidelines. And
No.
my taxpayer dollars are paying for this too? Does anyone understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Ms. Treston, do you need, for access to that, like like up in Lido, let's say, I don't want to talk to the wall here. Up in Lido...
Thank you very much, I appreciate you standing, thank you.
So in Lido, they have access
yes,
via
they
concrete.
have a
Is that, do you need us to put, like, we could probably, I think, Charles, we could put a concrete walk
Well,
virtually in
that's
it.
why I would like to know if there's any plans, because there could be a simple ramp going up to the area. Are the dogs going to be off leash? It's a very small spot.
Yeah, well, the dogs,
As
I
it is.
imagine the dogs will be off leash because they are ordering a double gate and the water is state mandated.
Right.
But how about, I'll find out if it complies with the ADA rules.
Well,
And
Ms. Costello's currently sitting there, and she is the ADA compliance officer.
Yes, and in conjunction with our construction, I will get with the building commissioner and make sure that it is handicap accessible.
That'd be great, and I would really appreciate if you let me in on it, and I'd be more than happy to come on down and ride up the ramp to make sure it's okay.
Perfect.
Yes, no, maybe so?
That would be fine, Ms. Tristan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Treston.
Thank you, Dave.
Robert Kozlowski? Good evening.
Good evening, Robert Kozlowski, 61 Kentucky Street. I'd like to inquire as to the status of the porta sand at the intersection of Kentucky and Beach Street. It seems to be permanently in place there, and this is not a good time of the year to have a porta sand hanging around.
The porta sand?
Yes.
In the Georgia Park?
It's outside the park on the corner.
There is a temporary bathroom located within the fencing of Georgia Park.
Right, and what is the status of?
Is that the one you're talking
Yes,
about? So what makes you say that it's not in the park?
I apologize, I made a mistake.
The status?
Yeah.
That it's going to be there till early October, and then it'll be gone. And then we will see whether we're going to be constructing a permanent one next year, or whether there'll be another temporary one.
And notification will go out as far as that? Is that open to?
We've been
public?
talking about it at West End Neighbors meetings for at least the past year.
What's happened is we got a lot of concerns, it's me right here. That's okay. We got a lot of concerns from the parents that bring their children to the park, that there were no restroom facilities in the park. We were approached by the parents, we were approached by the West End neighbors about the possibility of putting in a permanent bathroom. When we started doing the research regarding a permanent bathroom, it was cost prohibitive at this point in time. So one of the solutions that we came up with was this portisan to see whether or not the facility would be utilized and whether or not it would justify spending the money to put in a permanent facility. So what you're seeing now is sort of an experimental installation to see whether or not this is something that we're going to install permanently, a regular bathroom made out of brick and with flush toilets at that park, or whether we don't need such a facility.
So when would the next meeting on this be?
What?
Status?
What we're going to do?
The results of your observations.
I would say that the best forum is that I go usually to every second or third West End Neighbors meeting, and I would say that that is probably where most of the discussion and most of the input that the city is looking to get comes from those meetings and from people that communicate with us directly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Angela Kozlowski? Okay. Richard Hoffman? Thank you. William Johnson?
William Johnson, West Broadway, Long Beach. Good evening, Ms. Goodman, gentlemen. This is more like a follow-up question. In many of the past council meetings, we have one of our residents address safety as it concerns traffic in our residents and the lack of stop signs. Recently, we have observed more stop signs installed. However, in some areas, alternate measures such as speed bumps could effectively alter driver conduct and traffic flow. East Pine Street needs speed bumps to curtail the rate of speed drivers use in that part of the community. I just want to say something because I heard something said about those knots on Pine Street were speed bumps. Those aren't speed bumps. Most people don't go over them. They drive to the side of them, what puts them in the direction of cars that are parked. We know that other communities and blocks are getting looked at for speed bumps, and we just want to have you look at our block too. Especially with the high rate of kids that are down there. We have Head Start there, we have the church there, we have MLK Center there, and we have the Sherman Brown Park. We also have McDonald's at the other end, so there's always a lot of flow going through there. And we would ask that you would seriously think about putting some bumps on that block. Actually, I don't think it would be that hard. If you wanted to, you probably could maneuver those knots that are there and place temporary speed bumps. Okay, and I got one other question. Recently, a young girl was hit on the corner of Riverside and Fulton Street. What I'm hearing is that she was hit and she was drugged at distance. Now, my question, being that we have a lawyer present, a couple of you probably lawyers, my question is, what is the procedure with police officers that handle that type of case where a pedestrian is hit? Is there a field sobriety test or a breathalyzer test that comes, or is it just done at the officer's discretion?
That particular incident that you're talking about was responded to by 4 police officers and our fire department, and the police officers made a determination that there was no criminality involved, but that this was an unfortunate accident. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, but my question is that the procedure? So it doesn't, once a pedestrian is hit, it doesn't mandate a field sobriety test or a breathalyzer test?
Only if there is some indication, if the officer has any indication whatsoever that those factors might be in play, then the officer will take that appropriate action.
Okay, so then it is at the officer's discretion.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Johnson, you had asked about speed bumps. The procedure with speed bumps, I notice you're talking about Pine Street.
Right.
You live on Broadway.
Yes.
So what the procedure is that the people that live on Pine Street, we need a petition from the people on that block, and what's the percentage, Charles?
Okay, hold on.
No, let me finish, please. 2/3 of the people on that block need to sign the petition, and then we need the authority from the people who live directly across from where the speed bumps are going to go, their approval as well. And that's the procedure that we've employed throughout the city. So if the residents of Pine Street are interested in speed limits, I would recommend that they employ the same procedure that we've employed throughout the city.
Okay, but also, I might not be a resident that live on that block.
No problem, you couldn't sign
I
the
go to
petition.
church on that block, I drive people back and forth to church on that block, and I have to go
The
through it.
comment was not meant to make offense. The comment was to point out to you that you couldn't sign the petition. That didn't mean you couldn't be involved in the process or don't care about the process.
Thank you.
Okay? Cecil Garrett?
Cecil Garrett, 210 East Broadway. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. I'm here tonight to speak once again about the BOA and the Brownsfield. On July the 29th, Governor Andrew Cuomo signed a law allowing municipalities to create land banks to convert vacant properties into uses that support community revitalization. And the land bank are local entities authorized to take control and redevelop vacant or abandoned properties to where they can best serve the public interest. Knowing the area, I find that we don't have a lot of vacancies, vacant land or abandoned properties in Long Beach. We have the residents of Pine Townhouses who are subject to new owners and going under new scrutiny as pertains to their living quarters. And we have residents that own their own homes in Long Beach that are encountered in a boundary of a Brownsfield area. And we urgently would suggest that since you are in agreement that the boundaries should not encroach the residential areas, that requests be made to the state to amend the boundary area. And that amendment would not affect the financial possibilities of the Brownsfield, because the minimum area that can qualify is 50 acres, and if you remove the boundaries from the residential areas, there would still be enough territory to qualify for the Brownfield funds.
You know, Mr. Garrett, I think I had mentioned that we had asked the consultants to try to take steps to make that happen, and I'm not pleased with what appears to be a total lack of activity. Well, I'm going to make a suggestion that I'm going to draft a letter to the Commissioner of the New York State Department of State outlining the wishes of the community, which are identical to my own personal opinion. And I'm going to send that to you before I send it to the Commissioner, and ask if you could gather as many signatures in support of this, that we do not want the North Park area to be stigmatized by that nomenclature of a brownfield, when there's absolutely no evidence to support that whatsoever. So I think this is a thing that, in working together, I can tell you something, they could very quickly ignore my letter, but I don't think they would ignore a petition from the community that's being affected. So I will work on that. I don't think I can get it out this week, because I have a very, very full schedule, but by next week, and maybe this is something we can work together on.
That would be great, because we're concerned about our community and our residents, and we received a letter from Williams Gas Pipeline a few weeks ago, and they were alerting us as to be on alert for this or that, but our question was, how does the Williams operate a high-pressure gas line in our area? Because that pipeline runs primarily through the North Park area. So we petitioned them, or we had correspondence with them to enlighten the community, and they responded saying that it wasn't their jurisdiction, and they transferred us to someone else, natural gas, and they referred us to somebody else, and we're just getting the runaround and no
Right.
information.
And I too can't understand that letter, because there is only one gas line, and that's the one that you know about, the one that comes down Long Beach Road and veers to the left and emerges from underground right on the bayfront. That's the only gas line that we have knowledge of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Allison Blanchett.
Hello, Allison Blanchett, 14 Arizona. Hi, guys. I just wanted to ask Mr. Torres how the EPA study was coming along, and a couple other questions. Not really questions, but more kind of comments. Something that you and I had spoken about, Mr. Theophan, was I don't remember if it was during the city council meeting or when I met you in your office, about possibly getting a bicycle committee together to work on some of the issues, like some of the requests that the community has had, such as bike racks and stuff. And with the surfing contest coming up, I think that that's something that we are really, really going to need is more parking spots, because obviously people aren't going to be able to drive. You can't always walk everywhere. We're going to have a lot of bikes. So I'm thinking that maybe if we, having some kind of like a bicycle committee type thing could help work on bike racks, bike lanes, assisting the city with future bike lane paths. And sorry, I'm getting lost in my messy writing here. Also, a bike committee could work on community education and safety sharing, on safety and sharing roads, cars and bikes and stuff. So I would actually think it would be really great if there was some form of a bicycle committee form to assist you guys with things such as positioning of lanes, of racks, how we can get proper education, how we can transition our new friends at Deco Bikes into the city. And yes, that's pretty much it. Just comments and what you thought, if that's a
We'll consider it.
Okay, and how's the EPA study?
Okay, I was in touch with Charles Schumer's office regarding that EPA grant that was submitted, I believe it was in September. Part of what's happened with EPA money is that there's been a stagnation of releasing of new programs. That would fall under the, I believe it was called the Showcase Communities Project, and that's for lowering greenhouse emissions by increasing bicycles, and we did this by proposing bike lanes in Long Beach. We have not received a negative response from their office, from EPA. Communities that have applied and did receive rejection notices are definitely those people that will not be funded. We're not among them yet. So there's still a chance that we could be funded for the bike lanes in Long Beach under EPA. It's just that all of the federal funding regarding new projects like that are at a standstill right now. And as you probably have heard, Washington is in partial disarray with regard to funding. So that's the latest answer I have from representatives from Charles Schumer's office.
Okay, well, I do hope you guys take serious thought at forming some form of a bicycle committee to, and I know you guys have the power to form like separate committee type things, because of one project could be looking for funds
Yes.
to do things like get bike racks, to help with the bike lanes and
Good
education.
good suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Karen O'Donnell.
Good evening, Karen Adamo, 74 Forester Street. I wanted to thank Mary Giambalvo, Len Remo, Kevin Mulligan, and Charles for your efforts in speaking with Quicksilver regarding the vendor parking for the August 20th and 21st Crafts Fair. Obviously, that's a very important matter, and this is all new, and we're all going through this for the first time, and it's kind of disconcerting for the fair. But I really appreciate your efforts in, getting some communication with me and the construction people.
It's our pleasure.
Oh, thank you. And I do need to meet with you one more time, maybe next week, so I'll
Certainly,
call.
absolutely.
And just to finalize the other details for the fair. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Noel. Jay Gessler.
Good evening again, Jay Gussel, 124 Taft, and again, I'm speaking as a private citizen. To revisit the contract that you guys voted on earlier, this is, pardon the pun, a real hosing for the taxpayers of this community. You've locked us in here now for 8 years to provide fire and EMS protection to this part of town at a fixed rate, with no provision for adjusting it, with no provision for increasing it. Is there any reason to think that pension, medical costs for the paid fire department, and raises and inflation aren't going to all erode that money, reducing the net return from that contract over that period of 8 years? I mean, unless you guys know something I don't know, I can't see how those factors aren't going to whittle away at that amount. So, again, locking us in like this with no provision to increase that is just bad business. The other thing with it is, that offends me personally, is I'm a taxpayer in this town. You've just given the residents of East Atlantic Beach, who don't vote here, whose interests you're not elected to look out for, an assurance that their fire and EMS protection costs will not go up for the next 8 years. I live here. I pay taxes here. I voted for some of you. Can you make that same assurance to me that my taxes for fire and EMS protection will not go up over the next 8 years? I didn't think so.
Thank you, Mr. Gessler. Wanda Brooks.
Wanda Brooks, 19 East Hudson Street. I have a list of questions. Do you want me to get the questions first and we'll go over the answers?
That'd be great.
Has the Tyflex valve come in? What is the name of the company doing the Tyflex job? When will the job begin? Does the company know how long the job will take? And where exactly will the valve be put? And what is the percentage of flooding that the Tyflex valve will prevent? And does the city have a backup plan if this does not work?
All good questions.
Let me just say this, is that what I can tell you with certainty is that all of the documentation with regard to the contract has been fully executed. The contractor's insurances have been provided. The Tyflex valve has been ordered. We have not received it. It's still going to be, my understanding, several weeks before it gets delivered. So the question that you're asking, I would have to consult with our Public Works Commissioner, who's away until Friday. But if you want to call my office on Friday, we will get you answers to those. Or if I could suggest, if you email me, ctheofan at longbeachny.org, I will make sure that on Friday we get you more specific answers.
Okay, so we don't know the name of the company that picked up the bid, no?
Well, we've got to contract with them. It's more than just picking up the bid, but I just, in my very cluttered mind at the moment, I can't tell you. If you want the name of the company, you email me, I'll get you that tomorrow.
Okay.
But what about the other questions? I mean, I've been asking about this for a long time, and I was led to believe that this was imminent, and now we're going to a few weeks off.
Well, it's only because the piece has to be fabricated, and they could not fabricate it until we had the resolution, which we had, until we had a fully executed contract, and they provided their insurances, but it is in the process of being fabricated.
Is this going to be done before kids go back to school?
It is my understanding that the installation will, I can't say whether it will be completed, but it will be started.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Randy Williams.
Drives my ass, Charles.
Good evening, everyone. Mindy Williams, 222 West Market Street. As you know, as we all know, we've continued to, it's been almost going on a year, and hoping that something could be put in place in regards to a citizens review complaint board or a civilian complaint review board. I did get some information on that, but I just want to reiterate why we need that. One of our community residents was violated by the police department. Wrongfully, they went into the person's home, and they did not have reason to do so. The family was extremely upset, and literally, a family was totally disrupted. There were things that was done that should not have been done. And police misconduct was evident and was present and took place. This only reiterates to me and to others and to the rest of the community continued disrespect, continued lack or regard to one's feelings when something has taken place that is unprofessional, and just total disregard for one's human rights and civil rights. I beg and I implore that a civilian complaint review board be initiated as soon as possible. I cannot...
I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm looking at a document now, which is you and Mr. Reno has been working on. Mr. Reno has gathered all the information. I know it took a little bit of time, but we're now in the process of analyzing that information to see whether this is a way we want to go. And I don't want to put you on the spot, so you don't have to answer this. But were you there when this incident you're talking about took place?
I wasn't there.
Okay. I wasn't there either, so I don't know what happened. You were told things, but you weren't there. And I understand you have a certain amount of frustration. And again, we'll continue this afterwards, because I don't want to get confrontational with you. I would just like to flesh this out with you a little bit, because you and I are developing a nice dialogue, and we're working together on this issue. So if you want to stick around afterward, I'd be happy to talk to you.
And Mr. President, I assume that both you and Ms. Williams are not aware of a critical factor that affected what happened that particular day, wanted by the United States Marshals.
Right.
Okay? So the United States Marshals, and this is a pretty critical element, came to the Long Beach Police and said, which is standard operating procedure, and they said, will you assist us in going to apprehend this individual? So under the direction and the authority of the Department of Justice, the United States Marshal Service, our police department assisted the marshals. Any complaint here lies with the U.S. Marshals and not with the actions of the Long Beach Police Department.
Mr. Theophan, in all due respect to that, when you know who you're looking for, you don't pull a gun out. When you have that identity in your hand and the description of the person, you don't do what had taken place. And I'm pretty much going to leave it there. I just want to pretty much share that unfortunately it's just more complaints than good complaints. I would love to give a good complaint for our Long Beach Police Department, and like I said before, it's not all, but it just seemed like it's always a bad complaint. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Cynthia Code?
Good evening, Council. My name is Cynthia Code. I reside at 2 Azalea Court, Long Beach, New York. On July 18 of 2011, an incident took place at my home, okay, where myself and my 2 children's rights were violated. Okay, protocol was ignored by the Long Beach Police Department, okay, and there was a mistaken arrest made. Okay, the assailant that they were looking for was released 15 minutes later. Okay, and I just would like to know what is the procedure. I had filed a complaint, and I would like to know what is the correct procedure for filing a complaint against the Long Beach Police Department.
Contact the city manager. You can either do that by telephone or by email. He just gave his email address. It's in his books. I'm sure he'll be happy to give it to you again and register the
I would like
complaint.
him to give it to me.
Sure. I gotta ask you, your name is Cynthia Code?
Yes.
The individual they were looking for has the same last name as you. Are you related to that individual?
I'm not here to discuss that.
Okay.
I'm here to get information.
First initial C, Theophan, Theofan, at one word, no hyphenation, longbeachny.org. And I would strongly suggest to you that if you do complain, that
I did
you-
complain.
That, well, let me just say, are you also complaining to the United States Marshal Service?
I don't wish to disclose any other information than what, I would just like an answer.
I didn't ask for
I would just like an answer to what I asked.
Okay.
You
heard
can't
the
get that
answer.
right now, I guess.
He just
You
gave,
can't
he
get-
just told you.
You
to
gave
get
me
in touch
your
with him.
email, I get. you-
Yes, so give me your
I have to
complaint
discuss
in
with
writing.
you. Oh, I have to give a complaint in writing?
Right.
Okay, so I gave a complaint to the police department. Wait, that does not get to you? Yes or no?
It all depends.
I have nothing else
Well-
to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all for coming out. Please drive safely.